Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Should You Play, the series where I talk about video games from the perspective of a busy lifestyle. Personally, I have a full-time job, family, and little time to play video games, so I just sacrifice sleep to get my gaming sessions in. Questions I have for you today are, is Resident Evil worth your time, and should you play it? First, what is Resident Evil Requiem? You play as dual protagonists of Leon S. Kennedy and FBI analyst Grace Ashcroft. Grace is tasked with going back to the scene of the crime where her mother, Alyssa Ashcroft, died. You quickly find out that some bioorganic disease is spreading, and your investigation takes you to Rhodes Hill Care Center. This is where Grace and Leon's paths cross. Leon is dealing with his own past while also fighting something inside of him. The conspiracy finally takes them both back to where it all started, Raccoon City. This is where a new biological threat is looming, a familiar face, and obviously the underground secret Umbrella facility. Let's start by talking about what the game does right. Leon and Grace, full stop. Leon brings that gritty, hard-ass action hero vibes that can weather any storm. They actually truly nailed the power fantasy of Leon. It's very reminiscent of like Resident Evil 4 and that style of gameplay.
Chat! Oh my god! I have never been so erect in my life!
Grace's part actually brings in the horror element. So you're not an action hero. You're not fearless. As Grace, you can truly feel the character being scared, and she's out of her element, literally fighting for her life.
Stay here, Emily. You handle this. I'll handle that.
This is a major Resident Evil 7 vibe, and it's actually pretty good. You can play as Grace in either first or third person. Leon is in third person. I actually prefer it that way. I prefer Leon staying in third person and Grace being in first person. Having those two contrasting playstyles in the same game actually really works, and I think that's what sets it apart from its predecessors. Another positive for me is the character development. With Leon, you actually truly feel his past weighing on him, his interpersonal struggle throughout the game. And Grace has this innocence to her that really drives her and helps her to be, helps her to help and be helpful. The last kind of thing I want to talk about with the positive side was the lore and the story threads itself. All the boss fights really seem impactful, and it kind of brings all the lore pieces together, as well as like the journey the characters go on. Resident Evil 2 was arguably one of the greatest Resident Evil games in the franchise, so this game really ties up those threads that were started there, or Leon's parts that kind of continued in 4 and 5, and you really start to kind of feel and understand the past coming back, right? Really like, oh, wow. Okay, this is really powerful for him, right? It's a big moment. Grace, from like Outbreak, you really feel her decisions with Alyssa, her mom, and all these things that have happened in the past, and why did these things come about? And really start to kind of see those pieces of those older games come together. And I thought they did really well in Requiem. I thought they really kind of did a nice job bringing all those together. Unfortunately, though, I do need to talk about some of the things that I did not like with Requiem. Some of the reviews surrounding this game actually talked about Grace's parts seeming more like hide-and-seek mechanics. Now, I get it, and I know that Grace needed to have that contrast and play style to Leon, but I feel like in this regard, they are right. Grace's parts did kind of feel like a grind. And once you switched to Leon's, you really started to kind of see that because you felt like a badass playing Leon. And you didn't want to go back to Grace's parts, right? Until later in the game, when Leon finally gets his like big part in the game, all of Leon's gameplay was just so short that I was actually sad by leaving it because I knew I had to go back to Grace's parts.
Oh, I wanted to space that. I was trying to parry it, but I didn't know she was swinging. Yeah, that don't count. No, that don't count as a death. That don't count as a death. I was trying to parry. Like it says space when parry, so I was waiting for her to like that. See, chat.
By the end of the game, though, I do feel like both characters kind of equally shared the spotlight. But for majority of the game, I was just like, oh, I got to play as Grace again. Reviewers in the game also gave credit to Grace's voice acting. That I was kind of bringing that tense horror vibe into her dialogue. I understand where they're coming from. Me personally, I just got annoyed with the majority of her lines always having to start with that horror scared stutter. I'm just like, oh, here we go again. Like I heard it again. I heard it again. Like, all the time, her lines had to be a stutter. And I just kind of got like annoyed with it. It's just a personal distaste from me. A big sense of the frustration, though, also in the game was that typical Resident Evil layout. Hear me out for a second. You start the game, you go to a first major big area, spend an extended amount of time in that area. Then you go through a series of tunnels or corridors to another big major area in the game. Spend an extended period of time in that area. Then go on and go through another series of corridors or tunnels to the ultimately underground umbrella facility. It's just the same thing over and over again, right? I wish they'd kind of switch up the storylines. Now, I still liked the game. I just kind of felt like, oh, okay, it's the same Resident Evil storyline, right? Like they didn't really like jump outside the box here, giving me something new with a Resident Evil story. The last thing I kind of want to talk about is just a typical gripe in Resident Evil, every Resident Evil game. I hate the inventory management simulator. I know that's just classic Resident Evil. I get it. I just want to go on record and say that I don't like it. Okay. But we go back to our original question. Should you play Resident Evil Requiem? The 25 chapters will run you about 18 hours. That for me anyway. I didn't speedrun it, but I also didn't try to 100% the game. My usual play style is to try to do as much as I can on that first playthrough so I kind of get as much of the first experience. You can only really experience a game for the first time once. So I wanted to do as much as I felt like doing that first time through. I ended up beating the game about 18 hours. On a busy schedule, you could absolutely chunk this game out and play it with that. The majority of the time, you can always backtrack to a save point, and you don't need ribbons anymore like the old days, so you can actually save as many times as you want. I believe I was closing in on about 100 saves by the time I beat the game. What I like to do, though, is anytime I do anything new and there's a save point, I go back and save right away. Because there's been too many times where I just kind of get into a flow, I get into a zone, I go do something, and then I die, and I realize, crap, I have not saved for a long period of time, and now I have to go back, all of this over again. I hate it. So I tend to oversave. So, should you play Resident Evil Requiem? Yes, I feel like you totally should play. Now, I'm a little biased because I love the Resident Evil franchise, but compared to like Resident Evil 5 and Resident Evil 6, Resident Evil has been on a good path lately. Resident Evil 7, great game. Resident Evil 8, Village, was still good. I just kind of have personally some mixed feelings about it, but Resident Evil Requiem is great, right? So you have 5 and 6. We'll just leave it at that. Then you have great, good, and great. And the last 3 Resident Evil games for me. So I feel like Resident Evil Requiem is still a great game that you should play. Now, if you're not a fan of the franchise or you haven't played Resident Evil 2 or Resident Evil 4, then Requiem may not hit as hard for you. The game is still good if you haven't played it. If you haven't played those other games, I mean. So Requiem's still good, but you'll just miss out on some key like lore threads that they tie up and like key cameos, things like that, right? Worst case scenario, you can just like watch story recap videos or some of those, the Resident Evil timeline before you play Requiem. Like there's a bunch of videos out there, right? Go watch those, then you'll be good to go. All in all, thank you for watching. I appreciate you guys. What'd you think? What'd you think of the review? Be sure to leave a comment with your thoughts of the game, of my review, what you liked, what you didn't like. Also, let me know of any game you are interested in seeing here on the channel. Thank you for watching. I hope you hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you in the next one. Appreciate you.